My stepdaughter threw a dinner plate at my son's head and screamed, "I'm on my period," as an excuse. When I asked my girlfriend to discipline her, she sighed and said, "It's a woman thing. I don't expect you to understand." I stayed silent. That was 7 months ago. Yesterday, her daughter was arrested for assaulting another one. Before I moved in with my girlfriend, I wanted things to go perfectly. So I talked to my 9-year-old son about manners and making sure that he kept his older stepsister Francine, 13, safe. It seemed like he understood, because sometimes I would catch him watching Disney movies where the prince protects the princess, and he'd exclaim, "That's what I'm gonna do, Daddy." They each got their own bedrooms, and Francine seemed welcoming. My son finally had someone to play Lego with, and she taught him how to do origami. So one day I was minding my own business when my girlfriend tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Francine just got her period." I tensed up a little, mainly just feeling really awkward, and I guess my girlfriend noticed because she laughed. "Don't worry, I've already had the talk with her. All you have to do is be extra nice." I breathed a sigh of relief, which made my girlfriend laugh even harder. That same day, me and my son Derek went out to buy flowers and Hershey's milk chocolate, her favorite. When we got back, I told Derek to give them to her, and he ran in all excited. "Daddy says you have the woman's pain. I hope this makes you feel better." His childish innocence made me chuckle, and I expected her to give him a hug, or even just say thanks. Instead, she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Get the F out, I'm on my period, I just want to be alone." Derek then ran out and closed the door with terror in his eyes. Well, I myself have, obviously, never had a menstrual cycle before, so I thought that maybe this is just how girls act as they get used to the whole thing. I told this to Derek, and he didn't really understand. But then again, does any guy understand girls? Lol. I figured the most important thing was that he respected her wishes during this time, and he did. So we both left Francine alone for the rest of the day, and when dinner came, I told her she could eat alone in her room if she wanted, but she insisted on eating with us at the table. We were all sitting around the roast chicken when my girlfriend came home, and as soon as she sat down, our house went from a loving home to Germany in the 1940s, because as soon as Francine took the first bite, she cried out, "This tastes effing disgusting! I don't want your food anymore!" She then threw her plate right towards Derek. Luckily, he ducked and it hit the wall, but it was just inches away from hitting his skull. I stood up in shock. I expected my girlfriend to discipline her in some way, but right before anyone could say anything, she announced, "I'm on my period. Why can't you guys understand that?" She then stormed off into her room. I felt Derek's little hands grip my arm as he tried to move his tiny self towards me in fear. "It's her first day," my girlfriend announced, immediately trying to rationalize her behavior. "It's a woman thing. I don't expect you to understand, but please just try to have some empathy. It's only a few days." I buried my face in my hands, but that's when Derek spoke. "Yeah, Daddy, it's not her fault." I looked into his big brown eyes and decided to listen to him. The next afternoon, while Francine was at school, me and Derek spent almost 4 hours transforming the bathroom into a makeshift spa for Francine. We filled it with candles, bath bombs, face masks, brands my girlfriend recommended, and soothing music. We had her favorite movie playing on the TV, with a basket containing a new Lego set, and I organized for me and Derek to stay with my mom that night, so that she could have girl time. I left before she came home, so I didn't get to see her reaction. And when me and Derek got home the next day, she didn't even mention it to either of us. But that didn't matter, because I just wanted us to come closer as a family. "Can you paint my room pink?" was the first thing she asked. I told her no, because I was super busy and had to work to make up for the hours I missed planning her spa day. She started screaming in my face, so close she was practically spitting. "But I'm on my period, and this will help me feel better. Don't you want me to feel better?" I was about to respond when my girlfriend re-entered the room. "Honey, what did I say about empathizing with Francine during this time?" I tried to explain what was going on, but for some reason she didn't want to hear it. But this time, I wasn't budging, because I really was just too busy to give in to her demands. So I simply went upstairs to go to sleep without saying a word. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Francine screaming again, except this time, it wasn't at me. It was at Derek. He was crying and begging for me to come into my room. As soon as I saw them, my heart dropped. She was banging her elbow into his leg over and over, telling him he had to paint her room because she was on her period. I lifted her up and carried her out the room before locking the door, and as I held Derek, who cried in my arms, covered in injuries, I knew that had to be my final straw. I sat there holding Derek for what felt like hours. His little body was shaking and he kept saying sorry over and over. I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. I checked his leg and saw red marks that were already turning purple. My hands were shaking as I took pictures with my phone. I needed to document this. Derek kept asking if Francine was going to hurt him again. I promised him I wouldn't let that happen. My girlfriend knocked on the door about 10 minutes later. She asked what was going on and why Francine was so upset. I opened the door and showed her Derek's leg. She looked at it for maybe 2 seconds before saying Francine was just having a hard time with her hormones. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her that hormones don't make you physically attack a 9-year-old. She got defensive and said I was being dramatic. She said Derek probably did something to provoke her. That made my blood boil, but I kept my cool. I told her we needed to have a serious conversation about boundaries. She rolled her eyes and walked away. I decided right then that Derek wasn't safe in this house anymore. I called my mom and asked if if we could stay with her for a few days. She said yes immediately. I packed bags for both of us while Derek sat on my bed watching. He asked if we were leaving forever. I told him we just needed some space to figure things out. We left that afternoon while Francine was still in her room. My girlfriend texted me nonstop asking where we were. I told her we were at my mom's and needed time to think. She called me overreacting and said I was teaching Derek to run away from problems. I didn't respond. My mom was amazing with Derek. She made his favorite mac and cheese and let him pick all the movies, but I could tell he was still scared. He kept asking when we were going home. I didn't have an answer for him. On the third day, my girlfriend showed up at my mom's house. She had Francine with her. They both looked like they'd been crying. My girlfriend apologized and said she'd talked to Francine about her behavior. Francine mumbled sorry without looking at Derek. My girlfriend begged us to come home. She promised things would be different. Against my better judgment, I agreed. But I told her if anything like this happened again, we were done. The car ride home was silent. When we got back, I noticed Francine had painted her room pink herself. It looked terrible with paint drips everywhere, but I didn't say anything. That night at dinner, everyone was quiet. Derek barely touched his food. Francine kept glancing at him with this weird look on her face. After dinner, I pulled my girlfriend aside. I told her I wanted to set up some family counseling. She got upset and said I was making a big deal out of nothing. She said all siblings fight. I reminded her that Francine wasn't Derek's sibling yet, and that what happened wasn't normal fighting. She stormed off to bed without saying goodnight. The next few days were tense but calm. Francine mostly stayed in her room. Derek stuck close to me whenever we were home. Then Friday came. I got home from work to find Derek locked in the bathroom crying. He said Francine told him she was on her period again and he had to do all her chores. When he said no, she grabbed his favorite toy and threatened to break it. I found Francine in the living room watching TV like nothing happened. I asked her about it and she immediately started yelling that I was attacking her. My girlfriend came running in and took Francine's side without even asking what happened. I was done playing nice. I told them both that this behavior was unacceptable. Francine started fake crying and ran to her room. My girlfriend followed her. I went to check on Derek. He had barricaded himself in the bathroom with towels under the door. It broke my heart. I coaxed him out and we went to get ice cream. While we were gone, my girlfriend texted that I was being emotionally abusive to Francine. I couldn't believe she used those words. When we got back, there was a note on the kitchen table. My girlfriend had taken Francine to a hotel for the weekend to give her space from my toxic masculinity. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it was. Derek asked if they were mad at us. I told him sometimes adults disagree about important things. We had a great weekend, just the two of us. We built a huge Lego city and had a movie marathon. Derek seemed more like himself, but Sunday night they came back. Francine walked in like she owned the place. She went straight to Derek and told him she needed his Legos for a school project. He said no. She started screaming about her period again. This time I recorded it on my phone. My girlfriend tried to grab my phone, but I put it in my pocket. I told Francine that having a period doesn't give her the right to take other people's things. She ran off crying again. My girlfriend accused me of traumatizing her daughter. I showed her the video I just took. She barely glanced at it before saying I was overreacting again. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how this was affecting Derek. He was such a happy kid before all this. Now he was anxious and scared in his own home. I made a decision. The next morning I started looking for apartments. I didn't tell my girlfriend. I needed an exit plan. Derek went to school like normal, but I could tell he didn't want to go. I promised I'd pick him up right at 3. Around noon, I got a call from the school. Derek was in the nurse's office with a stomach ache, but when I got there, the nurse pulled me aside. She said Derek told her he was scared to go home. She asked if everything was okay. I didn't know what to say. I took Derek home, and he clung to me the whole time. When we walked in, Francine was home sick from school. My girlfriend was at work. Francine looked at Derek and smiled this creepy smile. She said she needed him to make her lunch because she had cramps. I told her to make her own lunch. She started screaming and throwing things. I grabbed Derek, and we left. We went back to my mom's. This time I knew we weren't going back. I called my girlfriend that night and told her we needed space. The words felt heavy coming out of my mouth, like stones I'd been carrying for weeks. She went ballistic on the phone. Her voice cracked and rose to a pitch I'd never heard before. She said I was destroying our family and turning Derek against Francine. I could hear her pacing, the floorboards creaking under her feet in that familiar pattern she made when she was upset. I stayed calm and told her Derek's safety was my priority. She hung up on me with such force I could almost feel it through the phone. My mom made Derek's favorite dinner again, spaghetti with extra meatballs and garlic bread, but he barely ate. He pushed the noodles around his plate, making little mountains and valleys in the sauce. He kept asking if Francine hated him. His voice was so small, so different from the confident little boy who used to chatter nonstop about dinosaurs and space. I told him it wasn't about hate. Some people just handle emotions differently. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't really understand. How could he? He was only 9. That night he had nightmares and ended up in my bed. He crawled in around 2 a.m., his little body shaking, pajamas damp with sweat. He didn't say anything, just curled up against me like he used to when he was younger. I held him until his breathing evened out, staring at the ceiling and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The next morning, my girlfriend showed up at my mom's door at 7 a.m. She was crying and begging me to come home. Her makeup was smeared and she was wearing the same clothes clothes from yesterday. She said Francine was devastated that we left. I told her we could talk, but Derek was staying with my mom. She agreed, and we went to a coffee shop. The place was mostly empty, just us and a few early morning commuters. She spent an hour telling me how hard it was for Francine to adjust to having a stepdad and stepbrother. She ordered her usual, a caramel macchiato with extra whip, but didn't touch it. I listened, but kept thinking about the bruises on Derek's leg, purple and green like some twisted watercolor painting. I told her I needed to see real changes before we came back. She promised to get Francine therapy. Her hands shook as she said it, whether from caffeine withdrawal or emotion. I couldn't tell. I said that was a good start, but I also wanted family counseling. She reluctantly agreed, her jaw tight with resistance. I went back to the house that afternoon to get more clothes for Derek. The familiar turn into our neighborhood felt strange, like visiting a place from a dream. Francine was in her room blasting music. The bass thumped through the walls, making the family photos in the hallway vibrate. I knocked and told her I was just getting some things. She opened the door and stared at me. Her eyes were cold, calculating, nothing like a typical 13-year-old's. Then she said Derek was a baby who couldn't handle anything. I didn't respond and just got the clothes. I grabbed his favorite superhero shirts, the soft pajamas with rockets on them, and the stuffed elephant he'd forgotten in his rush to leave. As I was leaving, she yelled that her mom would choose her over me. I kept walking, but her words followed me out the door. That week, Derek stayed with my mom while I worked. He seemed happier, but still asked about going home every day. When can we go back to my room? He'd ask, and each time it broke my heart a little more. I told him we were working on making home safer for everyone. My girlfriend texted constantly asking when we were coming back. Her messages ranged from pleading to angry to desperate, sometimes all three in a single text. I told her after we had a family counseling session. She finally agreed, and we scheduled one for Saturday. The counseling session was a disaster. The office smelled like vanilla candles and had those generic inspirational posters on the walls. Francine refused to talk and just sat there glaring at Derek. When the counselor asked her about the incident with Derek's leg, she said he was lying. My girlfriend immediately backed her up, saying Derek exaggerates. Something inside me snapped. I pulled out my phone and showed the counselor the pictures. The bruises looked even worse on the small screen, undeniable evidence of what had happened. Francine started screaming that I was trying to get her in trouble. The counselor, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, suggested individual sessions for Francine first. My girlfriend agreed, but I could tell she thought it was unnecessary. Her face had that pinched look she got when she was humoring someone. We left without resolving anything. Derek was quiet in the car. He asked if Francine would ever like him. I told him we couldn't control how others felt, only how we acted. He seemed to think about this seriously, then asked if we could get ice cream. We did. That night, my girlfriend called and said Francine was refusing therapy. She said I was ruining her daughter's life by making such a big deal out of normal teenage behavior. I asked her what was normal about physically attacking a child. She said I wouldn't understand because I'd never had a teenage daughter. The accusation stung more than I expected. I hung up. The next few days were rough. Derek missed his toys and his room. He especially missed his train set that was too big to bring to Grandma's. I tried to make it fun at my mom's, but I knew he wanted to go home. I started seriously looking at apartments during my lunch breaks, scrolling through listings on my phone. I found a nice 2-bedroom place close to Derek's school. It had a small balcony and windows that let in lots of light. I put in an application without telling my girlfriend. Then Wednesday happened. I got a call from Derek's teacher. She said he'd been crying at recess and told her he was scared of his stepsister. She was concerned and wanted to know if everything was okay at home. I thanked her and said we were handling it, but inside I was panicking. This was affecting Derek at school now. His safe place was being invaded by his fears. I picked him up early and we went for ice cream again. The shop was busy with after-school kids, but Derek was subdued. He told me Francine had been texting him mean things. I asked to see his tablet. The messages were awful. She called him a crybaby and said her mom loved her more than me. She said when we came back, she'd make his life miserable. One message just said, "I know where you sleep," with a skull emoji. I screenshotted everything, my hands shaking with anger. That night I called my girlfriend and told her about the messages. She said kids say mean things sometimes and I needed to stop babying Derek. I told her this was harassment and it needed to stop. She said I was being dramatic again. That word, dramatic, had become her favorite weapon lately. I said if she couldn't see the problem, then we had bigger issues. She accused me of threatening her. I told her I was stating facts. Thursday morning I got approved for the apartment. The email came while I was making Derek breakfast. I felt relief and sadness at the same time. I loved my girlfriend, but I couldn't let Derek suffer. I decided to tell her in person. I dropped Derek at school and went to the house. My girlfriend was working from home. She had her laptop set up at the dining room table, papers spread everywhere. I told her about the apartment. She started crying and saying I was abandoning her. I told her I wasn't abandoning anyone, but I needed to protect my son. She said Francine was just a child too and needed understanding. I agreed, but said understanding didn't mean accepting abuse. She threw a coffee mug at the wall. It shattered, leaving a brown stain on the white paint. I left. When I picked Derek up from school, he seemed happy. He'd had a good day, and his teacher said he was doing better. He showed me a drawing he'd made of a dinosaur fighting a robot. I decided to tell him about the apartment. His face lit lit up when I said we'd have our own place. He asked if we could paint his room blue. I said absolutely. He asked if we could get a fish. I said we'd see. That night, my girlfriend called 20 times. I finally answered on the 21st call. She was sobbing and said Francine had admitted to sending those texts. She said she'd take away her phone and ground her. I told her that was good, but it didn't fix the bigger problem. She begged me to come home. I said we needed more time. Friday was moving day. I'd hired movers to get our stuff while Derek was at school. The morning was gray and drizzly, fitting for the occasion. My girlfriend stayed in her room crying while I supervised. I could hear her sobs through the door. Francine came out at one point and watched. She had this smug look on her face. She was eating cereal, crunching loudly, making a show of how unaffected she was. As the movers took Derek's bed, she said her mom would never forgive me. I ignored her and kept packing. When everything was loaded, I left my key on the counter. The metal made a final clink against the granite. My girlfriend came out and made one last plea. She promised things would change. She said she'd make Francine apologize and go to therapy. Her eyes were red and puffy, her voice hoarse from crying. I told her it was too late for promises. Derek needed stability and safety now. She called me heartless. I left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that felt louder than any slam. Derek loved the new apartment. It was smaller than the house, but it was ours. The walls were white and clean, ready for new memories. We spent the weekend setting up his room and building more Legos. He slept through the night for the first time in weeks. No nightmares, no creeping into my bed, just peaceful sleep in his new blue room. My girlfriend kept texting, asking to talk. I finally agreed to meet her Monday after work. We met at a neutral location, a park near downtown. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She said Francine was acting out worse since we left. She was refusing to go to school and breaking things. She blamed me for abandoning them. I reminded her that I'd tried everything to make it work. She said if I loved her, I'd come back. I told her love wasn't enough when a child was being hurt. She left crying, her shoulders shaking as she walked to her car. That week was peaceful. Derek was doing better in school and seemed like his old self again. He laughed more, talked more about his day. Then Friday, I got a call from my girlfriend. She was hysterical. Francine had run away. She begged me to help look for her. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I dropped Derek at my mom's and went to help search. We drove through neighborhoods calling Francine's name. We found Francine at a friend's house 3 hours later. She was sitting on the porch, looking bored. She said she ran away because her mom was being mean since I left. My girlfriend broke down completely. On the drive back, Francine kept making comments about how this was all my fault. Mom was happy before you came along, she said. Now look at her. I didn't respond, but I recorded it on my phone, just in case. When we got to their house, my girlfriend asked me to stay and talk to Francine. I said no. I told her Francine needed professional help, and I wasn't qualified. She accused me of not caring. I reminded her that I'd suggested therapy weeks ago. I left and picked up Derek. He asked if Francine was okay. I said she was home safe. He then asked if we were ever going back. I told him no. We had our own home now. He smiled and hugged me. Good, he whispered into my shoulder. The next week, my girlfriend started calling Derek directly. She'd cry and tell him she missed him. He'd get upset after every call, his mood shifting from happy to anxious in seconds. I told her she needed to stop manipulating him. She said she had a right to talk to him since she'd been like a mother to him. I reminded her that emotionally manipulating a child wasn't motherly. She threatened to call a lawyer. I told her to go ahead. I had documentation of everything. She backed down. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just picked Derek up from school when my phone rang. It was my girlfriend screaming. Francine had hurt herself and was blaming me. She said Francine cut her arm and said it was because I'd destroyed their family. I told her to take Francine to the hospital immediately. She said she needed me there. I said no. I told her to focus on getting Francine help. I hung up and hugged Derek tight. He asked what was wrong. I told him someone was sick, but they were getting help. Later that night, she texted that Francine was okay, but on a psychiatric hold. She blamed me for pushing Francine to this point. I didn't respond. I knew this wasn't my fault. Francine had been escalating long before we left. The signs had been there. The anger, the violence, the lack of empathy. This was bigger than our leaving. The next day, I got a call from a social worker at the hospital. She wanted to talk about the family situation. I agreed to meet with her. I brought all my documentation, including photos, videos, and text messages. I'd organized everything in a folder, chronologically. The social worker was shocked at what I showed her. She said it was clear Derek had been in an unsafe situation. She thanked me for protecting him. She also said Francine was getting the help she needed. I felt relief that finally someone else saw what was happening. My girlfriend called that night furious. She said I'd made her look like a bad mother to the social worker. I told her I'd only shared the truth. She said I'd ruined her life and Francine's life. I told her she'd done that herself by enabling abuse. She screamed that I never loved her. I said I did love her, but I loved my son more. She hung up. Derek heard me on the phone and asked if everything was okay. I told him sometimes adults have to make hard choices to keep kids safe. He hugged me and said he was glad we had our own place. That night, he drew a picture of just the two of us with big smiles. I put it on the fridge where it belonged. The next few days were quiet. Then I got a text from my girlfriend. She said Francine was being released, but had to do outpatient therapy. She asked if we could try again with professional help. I thought about it for a long time. I wanted to believe things could could change. But then I looked at Derek playing happily with his Legos. He wasn't anxious anymore. He wasn't scared. He was just being a kid. I texted back that I wished them the best, but we weren't coming back. She sent dozens of texts calling me cruel and heartless. I blocked her number. A week later, she showed up at Derek's school. The principal called me immediately. She'd tried to take Derek out of class, saying she was his stepmother. Thank God the school knew the situation. I rushed there and found her in the office crying. She begged me to let her see Derek. I told her she had no right to show up at his school. The principal asked if I wanted to call the police. My girlfriend left before I could answer. That night, I filed for a restraining order. I hated that it came to this, but Derek's safety came first. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I hired a lawyer and prepared all my evidence. Derek stayed with my mom during the hearing. My girlfriend showed up with Francine. They both looked angry. My lawyer presented everything, including the photos of Derek's bruises and the threatening texts. My girlfriend's lawyer tried to say it was normal sibling conflict. The judge didn't buy it. When Francine took the stand, she admitted to hurting Derek, but said it was because she was jealous. She said her mom told her I was trying to replace her dad. My girlfriend looked shocked. She'd been telling Francine that. The judge granted the restraining order. My girlfriend and Francine had to stay away from both of us. As we left the courthouse, my girlfriend tried to approach me. Her lawyer stopped her. She yelled that she loved me and this wasn't fair. I kept walking. Derek was happy when I got home. He showed me a new Lego set he'd built with my mom, a spaceship with moving parts. I didn't tell him about court. He didn't need to know the details. We ordered pizza and watched his favorite movie. He fell asleep on the couch, looking peaceful. I carried him to bed, thinking about how different our lives were now. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of texts from unknown numbers. My girlfriend had given my number to her friends and family. They called me every name imaginable. I changed my number that day. Derek asked why. I told him sometimes we need fresh starts. He said he liked fresh starts. We spent that weekend exploring our new neighborhood. We found a great park with a climbing structure shaped like a castle and a comic book store where the owner knew every superhero's origin story. Derek made friends with some kids from the building. Watching him play without fear made every hard decision worth it. Then Monday, I got a call from Derek's old teacher. She said my girlfriend had called the school asking about Derek. The school reminded her about the restraining order. The teacher wanted me to know in case my girlfriend tried anything else. I thanked her and made sure the school had updated emergency contact information. That afternoon, Derek asked if Francine still hated him. I told him Francine had her own problems that had nothing to do with him. He asked if she was getting help. I said yes. He said he hoped she felt better even though she was mean. My sweet boy still had empathy even after everything. A month passed peacefully. Derek was thriving in our new normal. Then I got a letter from my girlfriend's lawyer. She wanted to discuss reconciliation and family therapy. I threw it away. There was no going back. Some bridges were meant to stay burned, but she didn't give up. She sent flowers to my office with notes begging for another chance. She had her friends reach out on social media. I blocked them all. I wasn't being cruel. I was protecting the peace we'd finally found. Then came the day that confirmed I'd made the right choice. I ran into one of Francine's teachers at the grocery store. She recognized me and asked how Derek was doing. I said he was great. She then told me she was glad he was safe. She said Francine had a history of bullying at school that the administration had hidden. She said several kids had transferred because of her. She said my girlfriend always made excuses and threatened to sue anyone who complained. My stomach dropped. This had been going on way longer than I knew. The teacher said she'd wanted to warn me when we first moved in together but didn't know how. I thanked her for telling me now. That night I hugged Derek extra tight. I'd gotten him out just in time. Who knows how bad it could have gotten. He asked why I was being so huggy. I told him I was just happy we were together. He laughed and hugged me back. Life went on. Derek joined a soccer team and made more friends. I focused on work and being the best dad I could be. We developed new routines and traditions. Movie nights on Fridays with popcorn and candy. Pancakes on Saturdays with chocolate chips. The park on Sundays where Derek would show me his latest climbing achievements. It was simple, but it was ours. 6 months after we left, I heard through mutual friends that my girlfriend and Francine had moved. Apparently Francine had been expelled from school for attacking another student. They'd left town to start over somewhere else. I felt sad for them, but mostly relieved they were gone. Derek never asked about them. Kids are resilient like that. He adapted to our new life quickly. The anxiety faded. The nightmares stopped. He was just a normal, happy kid again. That's all I'd ever wanted. Looking back, the red flags were there from the beginning. The way my girlfriend always defended Francine no matter what. The way she dismissed Derek's fear. The way she turned everything into an attack on her daughter. But love makes us blind sometimes. I'd wanted so badly to build a family that I ignored my instincts. I put my son in danger trying to make a relationship work. That's my biggest regret. But we survived. We got out. We built something better. Just the two of us. And honestly, we're happier than we ever were in that house. Derek doesn't have to walk on eggshells. I don't have to constantly defend him. We just get to be us. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. Even when it's hard. Even when people call you heartless. Because at the end of the day, protecting your kid is what matters most. Everything else is just noise. I thought that was the end of it. Derek was doing great. I had my sanity back, and we were building our new life. But of course it wasn't that simple. About 2 weeks after I heard they'd moved, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was a woman named Sarah Sarah, who said she was Francine's new neighbor. She'd found my number in Francine's phone after catching her trying to break into their house. My stomach dropped. Sarah said Francine had been harassing her 10-year-old daughter at the bus stop. When Sarah confronted my ex about it, she got the same excuses I used to hear. Sarah found my contact info and wanted to know if I had any advice. I told her to document everything and consider getting cameras. I also warned her that my ex would enable anything Francine did. Sarah thanked me and said she was already looking into restraining orders. That call messed with my head. I kept thinking about that poor kid dealing with Francine, but I had to focus on Derek. He had a soccer game that weekend and was so excited. He'd been practicing his kicks in the park every day. The game was great. Derek scored his first goal and his whole team cheered. I was taking pictures when I noticed a familiar car in the parking lot. My blood ran cold. It was my ex's Honda. I scanned the crowd but didn't see her. I grabbed Derek after the game and we left quickly. He asked why we were rushing. I made up something about ice cream melting. I spent the next few days on edge. I kept checking over my shoulder and installed a doorbell camera at our apartment. Derek noticed I was jumpy and asked if everything was okay. I told him I was just tired from work. He gave me a hug and said I should take a nap. Kids are too pure sometimes. Then Thursday happened. I got home from picking up Derek to find our door slightly open. I knew I'd locked it that morning. I told Derek to wait in the hall and called 911. The cops came and checked the apartment. Nothing was missing, but things were moved around. Derek's room was the worst. His toys were scattered everywhere, and his drawings were torn up. The cops took a report, but said without evidence they couldn't do much. I knew who did it, though. I called my lawyer that night. He said to document everything and consider moving. I didn't want to uproot Derek again, but I also couldn't risk his safety. I started looking for new places immediately. Derek was upset about his torn drawings, but tried to be brave. He helped me clean up, and we taped some of them back together. That night, he slept in my bed. He didn't say he was scared, but I could tell. The next day, I got Derek's school to increase security. I gave them updated photos of my ex and Francine. The principal assured me Derek would be safe. I also hired a private investigator to find out where my ex was living. I needed to know how close she was. The PI called back within 24 hours. My ex had rented a place just 20 minutes away. She'd used a fake name on the lease. The PI also found out she'd been fired from her job for missing too much work. Apparently, she'd been spending her days driving past Derek's school and our apartment. I felt sick. I went back to court for an emergency hearing. The judge extended the restraining order and included the break-in. My ex didn't show up, but her lawyer said she denied everything. The judge wasn't buying it. He warned that any violation would result in jail time. That weekend, I found us a new apartment in a gated complex. It had security cameras and keycard access. Derek was sad to leave, but understood when I explained we needed somewhere safer. He asked if the bad people were trying to hurt us. I said I would never let that happen. He believed me. Moving day was stressful. I hired off-duty cops to watch the building while we packed. It felt like overkill, but I wasn't taking chances. Derek thought it was cool having police officers help us move. He showed them his badge collection, and they made him an honorary deputy. The new place was nice. 2 bedrooms, a pool, and most importantly, security. Derek picked a new color for his room, green this time. We spent the weekend setting up and trying to feel normal again. Monday morning, I got a call from Sarah. Francine had been arrested for assault. She'd attacked Sarah's daughter with a stick at the playground. The girl needed stitches. Sarah was pressing charges and wanted to know if I'd testify about Francine's history. I said absolutely. This had to stop. My ex called from a blocked number that night. She was screaming that I'd ruined Francine's life by talking to Sarah. She said if I testified, she'd make my life hell. I recorded the call and sent it to my lawyer. He forwarded it to the police. Turned out she'd violated the restraining order by calling me. There was now a warrant for her arrest. I had to tell Derek something was going on. I kept it simple and said some people were having problems following rules. He asked if it was Francine and her mom. I said yes. He hugged me and said he was glad we were safe. Then he went back to playing like nothing happened. Kids can be so resilient. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I kept waiting for something to happen. Then Friday I got a call from the police. They'd arrested my ex at Derek's old school. She'd been trying to get his records by claiming to be his mother. The school had called the cops immediately. She was being held without bail because of the restraining order violation. I felt relief, but also sadness. I'd loved this woman once, but she'd chosen to enable her daughter's violence instead of getting help. Now they were both facing consequences. Derek's school called to make sure he was okay. They'd handled everything perfectly. I thanked them for protecting him. Derek never even knew what happened. He came home talking about a science project on volcanoes. That weekend we went to the zoo. Derek loved the monkeys and spent an hour watching them play. He was laughing and acting like a normal kid. No anxiety, no fear, just joy. I took so many pictures. Monday I had to testify at Francine's hearing. Derek stayed with my mom. Seeing Francine in court was surreal. She looked smaller somehow. Angry, but small. I testified about the pattern of violence toward Derek. Sarah testified too. Her daughter's injuries were documented. Francine's lawyer tried to blame mental health issues, but the judge wasn't having it. Francine was sent to juvenile detention for 6 months and ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. My ex was there in shackles. She kept trying to make eye contact, but I didn't look at her. When the verdict was read, she started sobbing. She yelled that I'd destroyed her family. The bailiff removed her quickly. After court, Sarah thanked me for testifying. She said her daughter was doing better but was in therapy. We exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch. It felt weird having this connection through trauma. I picked up Derek and we went for ice cream. He asked how my important meeting went. I said it went well and justice was served. He asked what justice meant. I explained it was when people face consequences for hurting others. He nodded seriously, then asked if we could get sprinkles. I said yes to all the sprinkles. Life settled into a new routine. Derek thrived at school and soccer. I threw myself into work and being present for him. We didn't talk about my ex or Francine. They were part of our past now. Then one day, about 3 months later, I got a letter. It was from my ex in jail. She wrote that she was getting help and finally understood how wrong she'd been. She apologized for everything and said she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she was working on herself. She said Francine was getting intensive therapy too. I read it twice, then threw it away. Too little, too late. Derek found me sitting quietly that night. He asked if I was sad. I said I was thinking about choices people make. He said people should choose to be nice. I agreed, and we made popcorn for movie night. Months passed. Derek turned 10, and we had a huge party at a trampoline park. All his new friends came. He was so happy he couldn't stop smiling. I watched him bounce and laugh, thinking about how far we'd come. I heard through the legal grapevine that my ex had been released early for good behavior. Part of me worried she'd show up again, but she didn't. Her lawyer sent a message that she'd moved across the country to live with family. She was respecting the restraining order and focusing on rebuilding her relationship with Francine when she got out. I hoped it was true. Derek never asked about them anymore. Sometimes he'd mention something from when we lived at the old house, but it was always matter of fact, like talking about a movie he'd seen once. The trauma had faded into just another memory. We made new traditions in our new home. Saturday morning cartoons and cereal, building blanket forts on rainy days, teaching Derek to cook simple meals. He loved making scrambled eggs and always added too much cheese. Our life was simple but good. One day at the park, Derek made friends with a new kid. They were playing on the swings when the kid's mom approached me. She was going through a divorce and asked if I had any advice about dating as a single parent. I told her to trust her instincts and never ignore red flags. Put your kid first always. She thanked me, and we exchanged numbers. Not for dating, just for playdates. I wasn't ready for anything else. Derek's 10th birthday approached and he wanted a camping party. We rented a spot at a local campground and invited his friends. Watching him roast marshmallows and tell ghost stories, I realized he'd really healed. He was confident and happy. The scared little boy who hid in bathrooms was gone. That night, after the other kids went home, we sat by the fire, just the two of us. Derek said he was glad we moved to our new home. He said he felt safe now. I told him he would always be safe with me. He smiled and asked if we could do this every year. I said absolutely. The restraining order expired eventually, but my ex never tried to contact us. I heard she'd gotten married to some guy with kids of his own. I hoped she'd learned from our experience, but doubted it. Some people never change. Derek started 4th grade and joined the robotics club. He was growing up so fast, still sweet and kind, but more independent. He did his homework without being asked and helped with chores. He was becoming an amazing young man. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd kept trying to make it work. But then I'd see Derek laughing with his friends or concentrating on building something, and I knew I'd made the right choice. His childhood was saved because I chose him over a toxic relationship. We still live in the same apartment. Derek's room is covered in posters now, and he's too cool for some of our old traditions. But we still have movie night every Friday. He still hugs me goodnight. He still trusts me to keep him safe. Last week, he had to write an essay about his hero. He wrote about me, said I was brave for protecting him when he was little. I may have cried a little reading it. He pretended not to notice and asked if we could get pizza. That's our life now. Pizza and homework and soccer practice. Normal, boring, beautiful life. No drama, no fear, no walking on eggshells. Just a dad and his son figuring it out together. It's not the family I originally planned, but it's perfect for us. Derek asked me recently if I ever get lonely. I told him I have everything I need. He smiled and went back to his video game. And it's true. We're complete just as we are. Two guys against the world, keeping each other safe and loved. Looking at him now, almost 10 years old and thriving, I know every hard choice was worth it. Every sleepless night, every difficult conversation, every moment of doubt. He's safe, he's happy, he's whole. That's all that matters. We're good. We're really good. And that's the end of our story.